I was the twin who died. Claire's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She'd been sitting in the hospital parking garage for 40 minutes, engine off, staring at a folder in her lap. Inside, it was a single document. 2 columns, 2 names, 2 different outcomes. She knew what it meant. She'd known for 3 days, but she still couldn't make herself drive home. Her phone buzzed. Her mother, she let it ring. Because here's the thing about finding out your entire life is a lie. It doesn't hit you all at once, it comes in waves. And right now, another wave was coming. Let me take you back to the beginning. Claire Whitmore was born 35 years ago, 11 minutes after her twin sister. One of them lived, one of them didn't. And the one who didn't, Lily, became the most important person in Claire's family for the next 3.5 decades. Not Claire. Lily, the dead one. Growing up, Lily had a framed photo in the hallway. Lily got a candle on every birthday cake. Lily was referenced at Christmas dinners, at graduations, at Claire's own wedding. Her mother would touch the frame sometimes, just in passing, the way you touch something sacred. Claire was 7 the first time she understood what she was living with. She'd come home with a drawing she'd made at school, a house, a son, a family. Her teacher had called it exceptional. She'd run the whole way home. Her mother looked at it for a long time. Then she said softly, almost to herself, Lily would have been such a creative soul. Claire put the drawing in her backpack. She never showed her mother another one. By the time she was a teenager, she'd gotten good at disappearing into herself. Not in a dramatic way, just quietly. She did well in school, stayed out of trouble, became the kind of daughter that other parents pointed to. But at home, there was always this invisible weight, this sense that no matter what she did, she was the consolation prize, the one they got instead. She never said any of this out loud. What were you supposed to say? I'm jealous of my dead sister. So she carried it. For 35 years, she carried it. If you're new here and you like stories that actually go somewhere, subscribe. This one's just getting started. The stroke happened on a Tuesday in March. Her father collapsed in the kitchen, and by the time the ambulance arrived, he was already unconscious. He survived, but he'd need months of recovery. Suddenly, Claire was driving to her parents' house every weekend, helping her mother sort through paperwork, manage finances, reorganize a life that had become unmanageable overnight. It was on the 3rd weekend, going through boxes in the back of the closet, that she found it. A shoebox, taped shut, her name written on the side in her father's handwriting, except it didn't say Claire. It said CL. She almost put it back. She almost didn't open it. She opened it. Inside, a stack of papers, rubber banded. Hospital docu from 35 years ago. She recognized the hospital name, the same one where she'd been born, where her parents had always told the story of the night they lost Lily. She started reading, the way you read something you expect to be boring. Then she hit the birth certificates. 2 of them. Carbon copies, the old kind. And the names were wrong. Not transposed, not mislabeled. Wrong in a way that made her sit down on the closet floor without realizing she'd moved. The baby listed as surviving was named Lily. The baby listed as deceased was named Claire. She read it 4 times. Then she sat there for a very long time, not moving, listening to her mother moving around in the kitchen downstairs, the sound of a cabinet opening and closing. She didn't say anything that night. She drove home, put the documents on her kitchen table, and called her best friend Jess. I need you to come over. Claire, it's 11 o'clock. Jess, please. Jess was there in 20 minutes. She read the documents twice, looked up, and said, Okay, is there any other explanations? I've been trying to think of one for 4 hours, like a clerical error. Both certificates, the nurse's handwritten notes, they all match. Claire's voice was steady in the way that means someone is holding themselves together by one thread. Jess, the baby who survived, was named Lily. My parents buried Claire. Then they came home and started calling Lily by the dead baby's name. Jess put the papers down. Why would they? Because Lily was the one they wanted. Claire said it flat, like a fact. You know how I always said I felt like the backup, like I was never quite what they were hoping for? She laughed, and it wasn't a happy sound. Turns out I was right, except it's worse than that. I wasn't the backup. I was Lily. They just couldn't let her go, so they kept her. They renamed her. They buried the one they could bear to lose and raised the one they couldn't, and then spent 35 years making her feel like she was never enough. Jess had nothing to say. There wasn't anything to say. I need to find out if I'm right, Claire said. Before I do anything, I need to be sure. If this story is hitting different, hit the like button. It helps more than you think. The next 2 weeks were the strangest of her life. On the surface, nothing changed. She called her mother. She visited her father in the rehabilitation centre. She went to work. She had normal conversations with normal people. Underneath, she was pulling a thread as fast as she could. She called the hospital's records department. She tracked down a retired administrator who'd worked maternity in the late 80s. She filed a request through a genealogy legal firm, and piece by piece, the picture assembled itself. There had been a complaint, filed internally, never escalated. A nurse who'd noted a discrepancy in the paperwork and raised it with the supervisor. The supervisor's response was logged as, "Family has confirmed names, no further action." Someone had caught it. Someone had been told to let it go. When the last document arrived, a corroborating record that made the timeline irrefutable, Claire sat at her kitchen table and didn't cry. She'd expected to cry. Instead, she just felt this enormous, exhausted clarity. Like a fog she'd lived in her whole life had finally lifted, and the landscape underneath was bleak, but at least it was real. She was Lily. She had always been Lily. They'd handed her a dead girl's name and then spent her entire childhood wondering why she couldn't live up to the girl she actually was. She went to see her mother on a Sunday afternoon. Her mother made tea the way she always did, and they sat at the kitchen table talking about her father's progress, about the physiotherapy schedule, about a neighbour's new dog. Claire sat across from her and watched her face. 68 years old. A woman who had lost a child, who had made a choice in the worst moment of her life, and who had then, what? Forgotten? Convinced herself? Decided that some lies, if held long enough, become true? "You look tired," her mother said. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. About your father. About a lot of things." Her mother's hands wrapped around her mug. Something shifted almost imperceptibly in her posture. "Are you all right?" "I don't know yet." Claire looked at her. "Mom, did you ever feel like you were carrying something you weren't sure you could put down?" A pause. Long enough to mean something. "Everyone carries things, sweetheart." "Yeah," Claire nodded slowly. "Yeah, they do." They kept talking, about nothing, about the neighbour's dog again, about a recipe her mother wanted to try. And then, near the end, her mother reached across the table and patted Claire's hand and said, "You've always been so resilient." Lily would have... She stopped. She actually stopped herself mid-sentence, which she had never done in 35 years. Her eyes came up and met Claire's. And in that moment, just for a second, Claire saw it. The knowledge. It was right there, sitting behind her mother's eyes like it had always been there, waiting. Neither of them said anything. Claire drove home and cried for the first time. This story isn't over yet. Stay with me. She wrote the letter that night. Not an accusation, not a confrontation. She'd thought it would be. She'd spent 2 weeks imagining herself walking into that kitchen and laying every document on the table and demanding answers. But sitting down to write, something different came out. She wrote about the drawing she'd made when she was 7. She wrote about the birthday cakes with 2 candles. She wrote about her wedding day, standing at the altar, and the way her mother had whispered Lily would have been so beautiful today, and how Claire had smiled and nodded and then stood in a bathroom stall for 5 minutes before the ceremony because she needed somewhere to put what that felt like. She wrote, "I'm not angry that you couldn't let her go. I understand that. I think I've always understood grief does strange things to people. What I can't hold is the rest of it. The 35 years of making me feel like I was always almost enough. Like I was standing in for someone I'd never be. I was her, Mom. I was always her. And you spent my entire life mourning me to my face." She stopped, started again. "I don't need you to explain it. I'm not sure an explanation would change anything. I just need to ask you one thing, and I need you to sit with it even if you never answer me. When you looked at me, not at Lily, not at who you thought I should have been, when you just looked at me, did you ever see me?" She sealed the envelope, wrote her mother's name on the front. Then she sat there for a long time holding it. The next morning, she drove to the hospital. Not for any appointment, just back to the garage where she'd sat 3 weeks ago, shaking, the folder in her lap. She parked in the same spot, turned off the engine. She took out one of the documents, the original birth certificate, the one with Lily's name in the surviving column, and she turned it over, blank on the back. She took a pen from the cup holder, uncapped it, and she wrote, not Lily, not Claire. She wrote her full name, the name on her driver's license, the name her parents had given a dead child, the name she'd answered to for 35 years. She looked at it, and then underneath it, slowly, she wrote, "This one survived." Because whoever she was, whatever name belonged to her, whatever version of herself existed on the other side of this, she had. She'd survived the grief and the comparisons and the invisible weight of being loved conditionally her whole life. She'd survived finding out. She'd survived the worst wave. She was still here. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. "Hi, Mom." A pause on the other end. Then her mother's voice quieter than usual. "I got your letter." Claire closed her eyes. "Okay. Her mother stopped, started again. "I've been sitting here for an hour trying to figure out what to say. You don't have to say anything right now." "I do." Her voice cracked. "I have to say yes. The answer is yes. When I look at you, I see you. I always have. I didn't know how to stop also seeing her. I didn't know how to put it down." Claire didn't say anything for a moment. Outside the garage, she could hear traffic, the ordinary sound of the world moving. "That's a start," she finally said. "That's enough for today." They stayed on the phone a little longer, not resolving anything. You don't resolve 35 years in a parking garage on a Wednesday morning. But something had shifted. A door had opened that had been sealed since before Claire could remember. Whatever was on the other side of it, at least now they could both walk toward it. She hung up, looked at the name she'd written on the back of the document. Then she started the car and drove home. Some things take a whole lifetime to untangle, but the untangling, that's where you find out who you actually are. If you stayed with this story, and if this story stayed with you, subscribe. There are more here that will too. Leave a comment. Would you have sent the letter? See you in the next one.